Thank you for joining me today on Geezers of Gear, episode number 202. And today's podcast is brought to you by Stratum Productions, bringing clarity and order to the chaotic event industry. Stratum is your single source pro AVL rental and design resource, proudly servicing shows and special events throughout North America. Founded in the heartland, the company's Midwestern values, relentless pursuit of perfection, and relationship-driven focus help separate them from the rest. From the first downbeat to the final curtain call, the Stratum Pro team of industry titans are committed to providing the best gear and technical support available to help you create immersive events that will leave crews thankful and crowds speechless. To learn more about this great company, please visit stratumpro.com today. And today's podcast is also brought to you by our friends at Act Entertainment. Are you a student thinking about a career in live entertainment or an educator with students who might be? Act Entertainment and Act Academy are proud to have partnered with MA Lighting International to offer the new Professionals Bundle to students and educators in North America. This new bundle puts the power of the MA VizKey and Act Academy's beginner learning path in your hands at a very special price just for you. Together, they can help you unlock your future of playback, programming, and design. Check out the new bundle and all of the other learning resources at Act Academy. And of course, visit coffeecult.com, coffee with a K, cult with a K.com, and look for Geezer's Grind. Everyone loves this coffee. I love this coffee. I drink it every day. It's the greatest coffee I've ever had. Honestly, it really is fantastic coffee. But the most important part is that all proceeds from this coffee, from Coffee Cult and from Geezers of Gear, Geezer's Grind, all proceeds go to support folks in our industry with Roby Backstage, and that helps folks with either medical or other challenges in our industry. So it's a great charity. It's one that I support. It's one that Geezers of Gear supports. And hopefully it's one that you support as well. So again, go to coffeecult.com and look for Geezer's Grind and buy it today. Here I am, I'm back. Geezers of Gear, episode number 202. That's a lot. We're doing another one tomorrow as well. That, unbelievably and remarkably, will be 203. And then we've already got 204, 205 already lined up for next week. So yeah, it's getting crazy. Anyways, today's guest is a gentleman named Howie Zales. And I don't know Howie, so this is going to be fun. I love getting on podcasts with folks that I don't know because I get to learn along with you about their history, their experience, their knowledge. This gentleman is an award-winning camera operator who turned his passion for television broadcasting into several entrepreneurial ventures, including a crew and staffing company, an early live streaming business, and an educational business teaching people about broadcast, camera operation, and more. And so, like you, I really look forward to learning from Mr. Howie Zales. So let's go ahead and bring him on. Hello, Howie. How are you today?
Good, Marcel. How are you?
Very well, thank you. So Howie and I just kind of introduced ourselves on the little pre-thing here and in our green room. And so I'm actually really looking forward to get to know Howie. As I was saying to Howie, normally on this podcast, I either know the people who are on it or I certainly know of their experience and their history and, the bands that they've worked with, the things that they've done, whatever it is. Howie, I've actually just learned in reading prior to getting him on the podcast and stuff. So like all of you, I'm actually going to be learning here and I look forward to it because he's an interesting guy on paper. So let's just see. So, so Howie, there's so many millions of questions I want to ask you because I think you're an oddity in that you have a very technical role and very technical background and education leading up and to your role, but you're also very entrepreneurial. And
Yeah.
so maybe we'll get to that in a minute. But first, I kind of want to know how you got into the business that you're in, and I guess that started as a camera operator would be my assumption.
Yeah. I always used to being in New York, I always grew up going to Yankees, Ranger, Knicks games, Mets games, and I was always intrigued by the camera operators, what they were doing, and I thought it was cool. And then I came to find out that a distant relative was a New York Times photographer who took pictures with Babe Ruth and Albert
Wow,
Einstein that my family has.
small
So
names.
it's yeah,
Yeah,
right? So it's
yeah,
kind of in the blood a little bit. And in 11th grade in high school, I needed one more class to fill out my schedule. And one of the electives that was going to work in my schedule was a TV production class. And the description of the class or the highlights were a trip to 30 Rock, which is NBC Studios, and
yeah.
a tour of NBC Studios, um, and to watch a show being taped. And I'm like, well, how bad can that be, right?
No
Easy
kidding.
A. And before that, my passion was baseball. I wanted to play professional baseball, but I knew I needed a backup, right? So now into the fall semester of my 11th grade year, I had this newfound love of TV production, and I knew right then and there what I was going to do. I was going to combine my love of sports, especially baseball, and TV production for my career. And I only targeted colleges that had programs that were you were able to touch the equipment from day one.
Mm.
Um, and I
And
ended up at SUNY Plattsburgh in upstate New York,
yeah,
and it was an awesome experience.
that's so cool. So I agree with that mentality, by the way, because learning from books, I've always kind of believed that there's a better way, like to actually touch the gear and touch the stuff and do the job and put yourself in that position is very different than just reading about it, right? So,
Yeah,
practical experience. Like I've always sort of had that hiring approach on people is okay, here's all your degrees and here's all the nice letters behind your name and everything else. Let's just push that over here. Tell me about you, and I've always really liked people who learned practical skills as opposed to, had tons and tons of book knowledge. I mean, it's obviously important as well, but
yeah.
so,
I grew up going to day camp, and once I was in college, I knew it was time to move out of that phase. And I got an internship in I think my sophomore year of college. I took the bus into New York City every single day to a company in Times Square, and what my role became was we would download CNN headline news, edit out anything you would not want to see on an airplane. And because I was able to edit in college, I learned how to edit in college. They let me do all the editing, but the
wow.
owner obviously proofed everything before when we submitted it. But back in those days, it was like 1992. We edited out anything you wouldn't want to see on an airplane, like a shark attack if you're going to Florida, or God forbid a plane crash, just
Mm,
as examples.
that's a big one.
And then we'd make however many copies, and I'd get in the car with all those copies. I'd go to JFK Airport and drop off all the JFK American Airlines copies. Then I'd go to LaGuardia Airport and drop off their American Airlines copies, make my way back to the office, drop the car off, take the bus home. And I did that all summer long, and it was one of the greatest things I could do for
What a
experience.
what a great way to start, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
And at
And
the end of the summer, I even got the owner of the company was awesome and even paid me for every single day that I worked. He paid me, and it was totally unexpected.
yeah, that's very cool. So from there, what happened?
I got an internship my entire senior year of college at the PBS station in Plattsburgh, New York, and I met one of my closest friends there, and I was directing the fundraising drives. I learned how to edit on their edit system, which was way more advanced than what we had in college at the time. And I just learned a lot about production. But
Mhm.
sports was still my ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And then when it came time to graduate, I knocked on every door in New York City that said so and so productions until I found a job in Port Washington, which is like the first town on Long Island.
Yeah. Good old American effort. Roll up your sleeves and go knocking on doors, right? I like it. It's funny to me that, like, not very often does a sports fan say, I want to work in sports, and you end up working in sports, right? Like, that's sort of, you've won life at that point, right?
Yeah,
You're
totally.
doing exactly what you want to do in exactly the environment that you want to be doing it, which is, wow, that's like huge. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
after I was done with that job that I explained to you about, I took a job shooting news in upstate New York, back upstate in New York, and I just put it out to the universe. I would tell anyone that would listen that I want to do sports, you know, sports. I want to be a sports camera operator. I don't want to shoot sports for news. I want to do it for the games. And so I would tell anyone that would listen.
Yeah.
And one day, ESPN called the newsroom because a camera operator got sick covering a University of Vermont basketball game that was going to be on ESPN the next day. And they were in desperate need. So, because everyone knew what I wanted to do, they said, "Oh, yeah, we have someone for you." And I got hired. I met the right person, who's still one of my closest good friends, Ted Flandre, who became a mentor of mine and of many. Um, and that one job eventually became a second job, became a third job, and it just snowballed.
Weren't you freaking out a bit though? Like, you had no actual experience shooting a live sporting
N-
event.
no experience except for shooting sports for news.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of camera experience, but I'd never been on a real remote. I didn't know how to run the cable. But the thing is, I showed up willing to learn, wanting to learn, and gave it 200%. And I just, listened. I
Yeah.
asked questions.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. Like, I guess it's a bit different, but like in the rock and roll business, I hear quite often, I just said yes. Like, people just say, I just said yes. Whenever opportunities came to me, I always said yes. If somebody asked me, do you know how to? I'd say, yes, I do. Without putting myself in a position where either A, there was a safety concern, or B, I was going to destroy a show because I didn't really know what I was doing. I just said yes, and I figured it out, because the problem is, when you start saying, no, I don't know how to do that, they don't call you a second time.
Correct.
Yeah.
I have a good story about just saying yes.
Oh, I'd love to hear it.
Uh, leading in right in September of 2020, so we're right in the middle of COVID. We started our live stream business. I was what the rabbi for the synagogue that I go to is one of my closest friends, and
Mhm.
we were installing PTZ pan tilt zoom cameras in the temple because it was going to be time for the high holiday services, and I had set them up with all the equipment needed so everyone could watch the service remotely. And while I'm there setting up, a client of mine called and said, "Listen, we need to interview 9 Major League Baseball players in 9 separate weeks for our client. But the caveat is the interviewer cannot leave her home. She has to do it completely remotely. Can you do that?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And he was like, "Oh, great, great, great. Send me an estimate." So I called my wife. I said, "Jenny," I said, "I have no freaking idea how we're going to do this, but this is what I just agreed to." But I turned to
Is
my
she in the
network
business as
of
well?
no, but she's way smarter than I am. And I learned that you always, if you're the smartest person in the room, then there's a problem.
Right.
But I turned to my network of people, and we devised these. We call them contributor kits, where we send them out to people that are in our remote or hybrid shows, It's a high-end laptop with camera, ring lights, USB microphones, and the beauty of it is it's our equipment. So we can dial in once the computer is on the internet, we dial into the computer, we can focus the camera, change the color temperature, manipulate the audio so the audio is leaving the computer in a good way, and control the
Oh,
lighting as well.
interesting. Interesting. Is
Yeah.
that how, again, me being an idiot when it comes to this side of things, but is that how, like, all of the different news
Yeah.
platforms that are, especially during COVID, were interviewing people that you could tell were sitting in their house in their pajamas? Um,
Yeah, a lot of people, a lot of them, some news organizations sent out kits like this, we devised kits that we knew that could travel well because we were shipping them all over the country.
mhm.
Um, and we come to find out that after talking to several, high end people, that our kits were better and put out a better signal, and the quality was better than what the networks were even sending out.
Interesting. Yeah. That is, what do you call those kits again?
We call them contributor kits because they're the
Contributor kits.
contributors to the show.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I mean, honestly, even for the podcast, I've always thought about
Yeah,
even something as simple as sending them a half decent microphone and a pair of headphones or something, because uh, I never have control over what the other person A looks like, B sounds like. I have a little more control now because I just keep upgrading software. And a lot of the new
right.
software now, like I can turn your lighting up or down, I can change color temperature, I can change certain things. But yeah, that's amazing. Obviously, the more professional that gets, and when you're interviewing, what did you say, 9 baseball players remote?
Yeah, yeah,
Not
and they
all at
were
once.
all in different places, not at one time, in 9 separate weeks, but we did
Wow.
do one of the coolest things we did was a home run derby contest for little league baseball players. In, one night and we did in one night we did boys, and 2 nights later we did girls, and on each show we had 10 kids, and with the boys we had a baseball player, and with the girls we had a professional softball player. And these kids, with the help of their parents or coaches, were given a time limit on how many home runs they could hit, and it was videotaped. And we
Oh,
would play, the client supplied us with all these video assets and graphics, and we did all these rehearsals. I did a tech check with each of our kits that we sent out. I had to do a tech check with each of the families, with each of the kids, to make sure their internet was good, to make sure that their background was good, to make sure we can control the camera and that everything worked. So we invested in 25 contributor kits to make this one show happen, because the girls' recording was 2 nights after the boys' recording, and we couldn't ship all of the equipment from the boys to the girls, so we had to design or come up with 25 of these kits.
interesting.
Um,
Yeah,
and
it's
that was
funny.
one of the
You talked
most
about
technical shows we had.
the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about the tech check, and we did one right before we started, and I broke everything. So we're on a different screen, we're on different everything than we were going to be on because I just kept clicking buttons and breaking it. So yeah, I think I need a tech check on me. Um, I want to get into this with you in a minute, but
Sure.
there's a very big difference between like the software platforms that you use, a person very much in the industry and very much in the know, and something that, someone like me that you might call semi-pro, you know, uh, really I'm an amateur. I have no idea what I'm doing. So I'm just always looking for the simplest plug and play, click this button, then this button platform. And, and so, yeah, you were sort of guiding me on, well, you might want to try this. You might want to try this. But the thing is, at the end of the day, I'm not going to have engineers around. Like, I need something that I can record quickly and easily, put a little bit of
Right.
branding on it when necessary, and upload it. Real simple. I sometimes don't even edit unless there's things that have to be edited. If somebody said something
Yeah.
wrong or we talked about a person that we shouldn't have talked about or whatever. But because it's a podcast, it's a little less serious, I guess, when it comes to all of the editing and stuff that you have to do. But yeah. So what? So the first event you did, I think you said, was a college basketball game. When
Yep.
I'm sure you remember your first of everything, but what was the one where you were kind of like pinching yourself, going, "Oh my god, like I can't believe I'm standing here holding this camera."
Well, probably, going to Yankee Stadium the first time and being on the field, because
Wow. Yeah.
obviously it all started because I wanted to play professional baseball. So being on the field as a camera operator, that was,
Yeah. That's
one
wow.
of them.
Yeah.
Um, Being on an NFL sideline, the Kentucky Derby, um, the Olympics. I've done about eight Olympics,
Jeez.
um, events like that, that people would give their right arm to be at, and I was fortunate enough to be at, not only be at the event, but like when no one knew who Michael Phelps was, and he won his first gold medal in Greece. There's a picture of him and me in the USA Today, and I'm the camera operator that's like taking him out of the pool, like on my knees, when he
Wow.
just won his first gold medal.
That's
So
incredible. I got
yeah,
goosebumps from that.
yeah.
That's an incredible story. I mean, I guess I didn't realize, like, I would have thought that for the Olympics in Greece, they'd hire camera operators from Greece, right? Like they wouldn't bring a whole team of those people over from the US. But so you get
Yeah.
hired by who? By the network or by the production?
NBC, yeah,
Oh, okay.
NBC.
And so you're freelance though, so you work for NBC one week, you work for ESPN the next week.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Interesting. Hmm.
But most, not most of us, there's different paths you can take in the industry, and what I mean by that is, um, I primarily worked for NBC Sports. So in the fall, I did and I traveled pretty much with the same director. I did Notre Dame football. I filled in on Sunday Night Football. Then I did in the then I would do Olympics in the winter and whatever other events that they had in the spring. I did arena football, and then the three horse races: Kentucky Derby, Preakness, Belmont Stakes. There would be several gymnastics events in the winter, or figure skating events in the winter, spring and summer.
Did you ever work with
And then
Bill Brennan?
yeah,
Of
of
course,
course,
I'm sure you did. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I've been
yeah.
friends with the Brennan family for 30 plus years, I guess.
Okay, yeah, he
Yeah,
was the LD for NBC for years.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and then I did the original XFL back in 2000, and I was hired by NBC. And at the XFL, I met the World Wrestling Federation. It was Federation at the time, Entertainment People. And like as soon as the season ended, a camera operator backstage got fired. And because I had met the right people on the sideline, they asked if I would mind doing it, and I ended up shooting, WWE for over 22 years. So
Interesting.
I would go back and forth between wrestling, football, and the whole wrestling and NBC world.
Yeah. So probably Jason in WWE. Yeah. What about a guy
Yep.
named Frank Santoro who used to do the lighting like 100 years ago for WWF, maybe?
I don't know Frank, but of course I know Jason very well.
Yeah, yeah. Jason's a good guy. It's
And
amazing how much
Jeff,
big bigger those
Jeff
shows
Lane.
keep getting. Yeah, Jeff. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. What about
Yeah.
your first Super Bowl? You did one, right?
I've done many. Yeah. Yeah, I'll never forget it. Yeah, but you know what? The Super Bowl is a weird event, right? There's all this hype and everything leading up to it, and all the pregame stuff that goes on. But as soon as the ball is kicked off,
It's just a
it
football game.
honestly, it's just another football game
Exactly. I mean,
with a lot more people on the sideline.
that's the weird thing
Um,
about the Super Bowl.
it's just a
It's
weird
just
thing,
a
right?
football game. Yeah.
It's just another football game.
So do you do
Yeah,
anything with the halftime show as well? Like, are you shooting that as well, or is that a different crew?
that's a different crew.
Ah, interesting.
The
Yeah.
the, they'll use, like, the cable cam from the main show, they'll
Okay. Yeah.
use, like, the cart camera, but yeah, pretty much it's
So the primo events, which I would guess are like the Olympics and the Super Bowl and stuff like that, like, is that politics? Are you bidding on those? Are you just
no, you pretty much travel with the same director,
okay?
uh,
So you're part of his team
pretty
or
much,
her team? Yeah.
yeah, his or her team.
Yeah.
So, and then for the Super Bowl, since it's a bigger show, the more well-known people get asked by the other networks to join the show.
Yeah. Yeah. So more senior people who, yeah,
Yeah,
they can trust you. They know
yeah,
you're not going to screw it up and miss the field goal
right.
or touchdown or whatever. Yeah. That's very cool. So, what, like a 20-year career as a camera guy, right?
Yeah, yeah. Over
That's,
more than
and
20 years.
do you
Yep.
still do that now?
No, I stopped shooting about 3 or 4 years ago. I've
Yeah.
had 3 back surgeries, 3 concussions, it's, I'm
So,
a full-time
yeah,
entrepreneur.
which I want to talk about because that's to me an incredible story. But um, to stick with the camera stuff for a minute, so how much did technology change, and how much did that change like your game from the beginning
It's
to the end of your camera operating career?
Yeah, I get this question asked often, and it's a good one. But technology changed because when I started, it was standard def, so 4:3. Then it transitioned to high def, 16:9, and at first we were still cropping the shots for 4:3 because a lot of the country didn't even have high def.
Yeah,
And what I mean by that is we kept everything in the middle of the frame. The graphics were still in the middle of the frame, not going to the end because a lot of the countries still only saw standard
yeah,
def.
you
And I
couldn't
feel like
rely on the screen being wider. Yeah,
correct. And I feel like it was like 2010, 11 that it really became okay, we can let that go now and
it's so recent.
just yeah,
I
it's
mean, it
really
just
not that
feels
long
like we've
ago.
had this format forever now, like it's hard
Yeah,
to remember because even like the
yeah.
old 4:3 stuff is all being converted to 16:9.
It could even be later than that. Um,
That's
but
wild.
yeah, it's really recent when you think about it.
Yeah.
Um, and then 3D
Yeah.
made a slight appearance, but that faded very quickly. Uh, and now we have 4K that's really not used in the sporting world except on a camera that's high and wide. And the reason why it's used is because what they'll do is they'll keep all whatever the event is, keep all the players in the shot, and
Yeah.
then in the edit room or the replay room, they can zoom it in as tight as they want and still keep it high def quality and not have any degradation in
Ah,
the
so they can select part of the shot as opposed to the whole shot or whatever they can zoom in.
right.
Yeah.
And they'll zoom it in and still it'll have either even better than high def look, but nothing's broadcast in 4K.
Yeah.
Um, and to answer your question, the weight of the cameras hasn't changed because a handheld camera, you, if it got and the lens is very heavy because there's a lot of glass in there for the high def. So if the back of the camera was not equally as heavy, the camera would be front heavy, right? You wouldn't be able to hold it steady.
Ah,
The
I
camera
see.
has to be
Yeah.
able to just kind of sit on your shoulder and not move.
So it's being
So
ballasted basically.
it's exactly it's
Yeah.
balanced and the big studio cameras, those 100 by lenses, there's so much glass in there that that again that there it's so heavy that the camera has to be equally as heavy on the back end to support the weight of the lens.
Yeah, see, I would have guessed that the cameras were less than half the weight of what they used to be, you know, just based
Yeah.
on all the other technology out there that has gotten smaller and lighter. Um, so,
There are cameras that are light, like the cable cam, it's a small camera, but yeah, the majority of them aren't.
but was there like a major transition from like analog to digital that made a huge difference to you, or was it a camera, like all the same basically?
Yeah, all the same,
Yeah,
basically. Yeah, not for
because
me personally.
you're looking through the whatever what I would call the
So-
viewfinder. I'm sure it's much
Exactly.
smarter than that in your world.
No, no, no,
It's
exactly.
still called a viewfinder.
Yeah.
Wow, I would have thought it was called the image capturing device or
Nah.
something. Live whatever. Yeah. So that's interesting. So yeah, I mean, you just brought it up the fact that you transitioned to entrepreneur. It's a again, like I said earlier, it's not what I would think to be a natural transition. Like I know a few engineers and really, really smart people, and I'm not saying all entrepreneurs are dumb. I happen to be dumb most days, but um, just the whole entrepreneurship world is full of risk taking, somewhat crazy. Um, not very conservative people. And typically that's sort of the antithesis of someone who has taken a lot of school to do a very technical job and have a technical career and to be, engineering minded and stuff like that. So how'd that happen?
Well, a great question. Um, I I knew I needed a backup, right? I knew, like, God forbid I got hurt.
Mm.
How would I earn money? Being a freelance person, there's no guarantee. You're not guaranteed a certain
Yeah.
amount of days of work. So I knew I needed a backup, and I didn't know what that was until a friend of mine called, and he worked for MSNBC, and they were doing Imus's radio show. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah, of course.
But once in a while, they would take it on the road. And he said, "Hey, can you do camera for Imus in the morning? We're going to be at I think it was the Mohegan Sun in Connecticut." And I said, "Sure, I'm available. I'd love to." And he said, "Hey, do you have any friends? I need, two more camera people, an audio person, this, that." And he named all these positions. I said, "Sure, I can find those people." And he said, "Can you do one more favor for me?" He said, "Can you just send me one invoice and pay everyone? It'll make my life a lot easier." And I said, "Sure." And I was like, then
Suddenly you're a labor company.
I got to thinking, well, someone calls me to work all the time and they have a business. Why can't I do this?
Mm.
So that was it.
Mm.
And I started HJZ Productions. We started, we call it crewing or hiring sports and entertainment freelancers in the New York area. We started in the New York area, and it really, really took off in 2007 when the IATSE, we signed a contract with IATSE Local 100, and then we started signing IATSE agreements nationwide. And we do
Wow.
work in other markets across the country, but our primary focus is New York, New Jersey, Connecticut.
And what roles?
We hire anyone below the line, meaning below the producer director. So camera people, audio people, replay people, utilities, production assistants, A1s, A2s. Uh,
Hmm. And
so
relatively specific to sports or not at all?
no, sports and entertainment, corporate.
Ah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
And
Studio, remote,
I,
whatever.
I read somewhere, and I don't remember if it was on your website or what, but that you initially focused on non-union stuff.
So we started our second business, Veridity Entertainment, or
Oh,
VES
okay.
for
Yeah, so
short.
I got confused.
Um, so we started that company, and what we were going to do is we were going to, because we have a lot of clients that come into the New York area, um, and they hire us HJZ Productions to hire the local crew that they need, but then they'll travel in a good part of their crew. So we started VES to say, let us take on the burden of paying those people under payroll on with New York state and federal labor laws. We'll train them in workplace harassment, sexual harassment, and take the burden off of you. And then all of a sudden the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
uh, so then we kind of pivoted it into live streaming.
So why did you need a separate company? Why wasn't that just under HJZ? Is it called?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good question. Because all those travel people are non-union because they're
Ah,
coming
okay.
into New York and
And
live
so you
wherever
couldn't
they
blend it.
live, and we just wanted to keep it separate.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, you moved into COVID. Before we get into what Veridity, I'm trying to remember
Hmm.
all your company names because you have many. Before we move into that, like, so COVID for you, how did it impact you? Like whether adverse or positive or whatever. Like how did
Yeah,
your life change when that happened?
well, I had been prior to COVID starting. um, I was really starting to cut back on the camera work, and it was my wife that helped me at the time. She said, you know, let let's look at our financials. HJZ Productions and now VES make way more money than Howie Zales, the camera operator.
Yeah.
If you stayed home and focused on the two companies, we wouldn't even need Howie Zales's
I like
camera.
your wife. I like your wife. We
Yeah.
should have had her
So
on
she,
here.
so she helped me see that and as a freelancer you have that fear, right? There was a little
Yeah.
fear giving it up because I was giving up something that I had for 20 something years.
Yeah.
um but it was taking me away from my businesses,
And they were clicking.
and they were, yeah. So I knew I had to give it up, and I hired a business coach. And you know until I really flipped that switch and made the mindset change that I was a entrepreneur who was a camera person on the side, then a camera person with a side hustle, did I really become, the businesses really become successful.
Yeah. So did everything shut down for you though when COVID started, or did that create
Eh,
new opportunities?
no, everything shut down March 11th, 2020. We
Hmm.
had a soccer game that night. After that game, that was it. Um, for 3 months.
Oh,
Um, no, no, but the one silver lining is that we always pay our employees before we get paid. So for 3 months, we had checks incrementally coming in because we had already paid those people. So clients, thankfully, excuse me,
bless you.
I apologize.
No worries.
Clients, thankfully, were paying us during that time. So we had money coming in. So
That
that
you
was a
didn't
good
have to
thing.
kick right back out the door. So yeah, that was good.
Exactly.
You had cash flow. Yeah.
But in June of that year, we got hired, or prior to June, we got hired to produce the graduation at West Point,
Oh,
for the cadets' families because they weren't allowing the families to come to the graduation because of COVID. So I hired everyone from the director to the producer to the full tech crew, and the director said he wanted his technical director. The technical director is the one that, when the director says take camera one, he or she pushes the button for take camera one. And it's a very difficult job. Besides the A1 or the mixer, it's the second most, you know, important role on any TV remote.
yeah.
Um, and I put up a little bit of a fight saying, hey, I have my own guys that have been sitting at home for 3 months that could really use the work. And he's like, I really need this person, Jamie. And I said, and something in my gut said, just gonna go with this because there's a reason. So I trusted my gut feeling. I kind of went with it. I met this guy, Jamie, on, 5 days of West Point's graduation, and we hit it off instantly and became close friends. And he was one of the people in my network that I turned to when I needed help putting those contributor kits together, and we did tons and tons and tons of live streams together, which helped make my VES of Aridity company successful.
So were you doing streaming events prior to COVID?
No, I had just started researching it and
Good
looking
timing,
into
huh?
it. I knew it was kind of down the road, but as soon as that happened, I knew I needed to like get on it.
Yeah. You know what's funny? Again, very low tech compared to what you're talking about, but my company has been remote for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years now. And so when COVID happened, again, on a much smaller scale, I was getting calls from all kinds of friends of mine saying, I don't know how to do this. Like, I don't know, like, they didn't even know how to move files off of a server in an office onto the cloud and stuff like that. So
Oh yeah.
I was teaching friends how to cloud their company, how to use Gmail instead of, like on prem servers and
Right.
stuff like that. And, you know, I thought of actually charging as a consultant at some point and spreading out from just my friends because it was sort of back of the hand easy stuff for us. Like Zoom was something we've already been doing for a while.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, I was doing all kinds of that stuff and just guiding people through it, but not near as technical as the stuff you're doing, obviously. So w- did so your idea came to obviously expand into live streaming and all of the different aspects of what that became, virtual events, I would assume. And
Yeah, we do a lot of events for corporate events for clients, concerts,
yeah.
things like that.
So did you have to wait for software to catch up, or did you just use the stuff whatever you could get your hands on and make it work?
No, again, I turned to my network, my friend Jamie, and we use this software called vMix, which is a broadcast quality software. It's basically a TV truck in a box
Yeah.
in your computer, and I know it basically it can have 8 different audio mixes going on simultaneously. Can have over 100 inputs on the big server I have. I think I can have 24 camera inputs. Um, yeah, and so we have on premises servers that we could bring to any that we travel throughout the United States. Uh, and then we also have cloud remote or cloud based productions that we do as well.
Yeah. And so you said you did live like music events as well too, right?
Hmm.
Streaming
Yes.
virtual.
Yep.
Was did you do anything where you were feeding back to the performers like because I've seen a couple of different technologies, one that was created within our industry and then another one like I forget what it's called, but Tony Robbins uses it. I always see Tony Robbins do these live streams where he's got hundreds of people up in the wall and he can go, "Hey, you,
Oh
Bob
yeah,
in
yeah.
Kentucky," and boom, Bob's on the screen next to Tony. And, because we saw a lot of performers. I talked to actual artists who said, I just can't get off on this virtual thing. Like, there's no crowd there. Like, we're playing and trying to pretend like we've got 10,000 people watching because we do,
Right.
but you just don't feel it. Like, there's no feeling
Right.
there. So,
We haven't used a video wall like that, but we
yeah.
have the capability to do that. Not for like 1,000 people, but yeah, we have the capability to do that.
Metallica did one. And again, that software, that technology was created within our industry. I forget the name of the company who did it, but Metallica did this one in the round, and so they could just turn around and like sort of go back and forth and have feedback from and give feedback to the audience, and could like say, "Bob in Kentucky, you're amazing," and Bob's going,
Yeah.
"Yeah,"
I
and
WWE did something similar as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that seemed to make a difference. I got to be honest. I was never a fan of virtual live events. Uh, you know, being at a live event is being at a live event. It's not like a sporting
Right.
event. Like sporting events, most of them I prefer on television just because,
Yeah.
like, I'm a big UFC fan, for example. I've been to several UFC events, but you can't see what's going
You
on.
can't
Like
see anything. Yeah.
even if you're in the seventh row, which is probably $4,000 tickets or something, you still can't see when the guy's on the other side of the cage. And plus, you can't
Right.
see the look on their face while they're getting something happening to their arm or whatever. Like, there's so many nuances that you just don't see live. It's
Right.
more, I
Yeah.
guess,
It's
about
so
the
much better
feeling
on
of being
TV.
in the live audience, right? It's the
Yeah.
party, it's the celebration, it's whatever. Um, so yeah, sports. I'm a big TV sports guy. Hockey, I love live. I'm Canadian, so I'm a big hockey fan, and I prefer it live. But most sports I
Hockey.
prefer on television.
Hockey's the best sport live
It
by far.
is. Yeah, I think so, and I'm biased, of course, but it's a game that in many ways is easier to follow live as fast as
Yeah.
it's going and stuff, right? Like my girlfriend is British and she knew nothing about hockey, and I'd get her to watch it with me on television, the playoffs or something, and she'd be like, I just can't even figure out where that little black thing is. I don't know where it is. And I'd take her to live games, and she'd be like, "Wow, this is incredible! I can see why you
Because
love it."
the
You know,
sounds are amazing.
the sounds and just again, when you can see the whole ice surface, it's easier to
Right.
figure out where the puck is because you can see what the players are all doing and stuff, right? And
Correct.
by the way, I don't know about you, but I hated that thing that Fox did with
Oh,
hockey with the streak on the puck. Oh, I
I mean,
hated
half
it
the
so
time I was in
much.
the audience.
And it's just funny because when you think of technology like that, the line
Right.
in football, very well done, very useful, very good use of technology like that. The streak on
Right.
hockey, not so much,
Brutal. Yeah.
brutal,
Yeah.
horrible. Yeah, that was just so bad. I couldn't even watch it. I'd have to
Agreed.
change the channel. I couldn't even watch it.
Ag- Agreed.
Yeah. Again, sorry to stick on hockey, but I live in South Florida most of the time. I'm in Canada in the summers. But when the Panthers started there and I got season tickets right away and was going to the games, every time the whistle blew, because it's South Florida, lots of Hispanic people who've never seen or heard of hockey in their life. And so every time the whistle blew, up on the scoreboard, there'd be a guy that goes, "This is tripping. Tripping is when you do this." And, he'd
Ah,
pull the guy's feet out from him.
explaining the rules.
They'd explain every whistle, like, this is
That's
offside, this
hilarious.
is icing,
Right.
every single time the play stopped, because people were just sitting there going, what happened?
What?
Why'd they stop? And, it's funny because my boss at the time and his family, we were at a game together, him and his two sons and me, and they're French and they'd never seen a hockey game in their life on television or live.
Oh my God.
And a fight broke out. And these three French guys, oh my God, you'd think that somebody was getting murdered. They were like, oh my God, what is happening? Why are they doing this? Why don't they stop it? These people are barbarians. And like they were just going on and on. So I went to a game with them maybe 6 months later because they had season tickets. And they were all like, kick him, punch him more times, hit
Right.
him
They're
again,
loving it.
Yeah, they were
Yeah.
they were into it then. So anyways, I
That's
forget what we were
awesome.
talking about. I'm sorry, I went off on a tangent
It's
here.
all good.
So you started by now two companies. I know you also have an educational company, right?
Hmm.
And
Yes.
that is to teach specifically camera operation or
Basically, uh, camera, audio, and utilities. The younger generation on how to get into the business because it was very difficult for me to get in. Um, I got lucky. I always had a mentor. I still have mentors. So trying to just pay that forward.
yeah.
And then we wrote a book or manual, I should say. From the second you park your car to the second you get back in your car, what your role or job responsibility is as a utility, a camera operator, or an audio an A2. And then we included, as a replay person, what you should be doing, but not how to operate the machine because that's a specialty, and same with an A1 and a TD. Those are three specialties that you really need specific training for. But we also included in the manual how to shoot baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey, and boxing from all the camera positions
Ah,
in a general way, because it's pretty much a formula. Each director may have his or her own style and tweak it a bit, but um, it's pretty much a formula, all
yeah.
sports.
So is this like is it like a real school, like where people come and spend 6 months
No,
with you, or is it
no,
very, yeah,
no. That was like the original thought was um, like a 2-day boot camp, and then get
that
paired
makes
with a
sense.
camera operator or something like that.
Yeah.
Uh, so but what the struggle we run into is credentials, getting people the security is very tight at a lot of the venues.
Yeah.
um, so we've kind of scaled it back to this 2-day boot camp, where the first day is where we teach about the business. We teach, we hand out email templates, how to email a client. We hand out a list with phone numbers and emails of who the clients are. We talk about, staying physically fit, because it's a difficult, you need to be physically fit to do this job. And how to do that when you're working late hours or through the night or things like that. And the second day, we actually bring in cameras and cable and audio setups, like a booth setup, um, and have everyone run through how to put it together. So we'll have an A2 work with the people that want to be in the audio world, and teach them how to build an audio booth, how to put out
Mm.
an effects mic, how to wire up
Ah, I see.
someone with a lav the right way, not just sticking it on.
I see. Yeah.
And then we'll have everyone, over and under cable, and not leave until they know how to over and under and tie the right, knot on the cable so it doesn't come apart.
Ah,
And then for the camera people, we'll have hard cameras and handheld cameras there, and have them unbox, build, and then deconstruct and rebox the cameras as long as they want until they got it down, because we don't want them to show up the first day that they get a job, and that be the first time they see the equipment.
so then through your crew
then through my then through my
staffing
crewing
agency,
business
no, but
then through my
are you pulling those people through there?
the first time we ran the course, we were able to hire 4 out of the 5 people,
Oh, wow.
and
That's cool.
we still do. And so what we do is, we bring once they go through the training course, I'll bring them on uh, a few work days as a shadow, as an unpaid
Yeah.
shadow, so they can see how it works, right? We can't just throw people into the fire. And then, yeah, and then the goal is for us to be able to hire them.
That makes so much sense.
The age of freelancers is getting up there. We need to start replacing people.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, are you having similar problems in that business that we're seeing in the entertainment and concert touring and even, trade show production and all kinds of stuff like that, but there's so many crew shortages. And
Hmm.
so we're seeing a lot of very innovative education and introduction programs and stuff to bring more people in. Like they're actually going out into the market and saying, "Hey, come be a roadie," because like one of the things I would guess in your business, it's a little different. Where if somebody wants to be a camera operator, it's more than just the glitz and glam of going to a football game and being able to stand there holding a camera, but um, the where was I going with this? In the concert business, people think it's like a gypsy job, like you don't make any money, but you get to travel the world for free. But people are going out on tour making 100 grand a year quite regularly now. And it can be a very good career where, yes, you do get to see the world. And yes, you do have an
Right.
interesting, unusual lifestyle, but it's also a lucrative career, you know?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, But do you guys have shortages like that in your world as well?
Yes,
Hmm.
and if I don't book certain positions early enough, it's bad. Yeah. I like every weekend we have we do a lot of hiring for Major League Soccer,
Mhm.
and as I think every weekend we have 4 A1s working, 15 replay people working, 4 TDs working, and that's just on my shows. There's a
Yeah.
few other companies that do what I do. My fingers are crossed every weekend that someone doesn't get sick or cancel at the
Yeah.
last minute.
So if someone's listening to this and they're like, "Well, I want to be a sports cameraman," um, do you have to have like college degrees and stuff, or
No,
can
no.
you train and become a cameraman? Like, could I go out and be a grunt on a few jobs, a bunch of jobs, and work my way up and take your classes and do all of those things and become a cameraman?
Absolutely.
Huh, interesting. So how do people enlist in your course?
Yeah, so, the best way to get in touch with me is, howiezales.com, and then all of our websites, HJZ Productions, Veridity Entertainment, and the Broadcast Sports course, websites are all found there.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
And so
Oh, that's perfect.
howiezales.com or at Howard Zales on LinkedIn.
Another technology question. So, it's become very common in lighting, remote follow spots where people can be
Yep,
outside in a truck or in the VOMs or backstage or
yep.
something running the follow spots. And there's a camera on a light fixture and they're looking at a little screen. And so, do you have remote cameras like that now or
We have robotic cameras like that, yeah.
robotic? Oh, so you're just using a joystick or whatever on
Yeah,
a camera.
yeah.
Right.
And
Okay.
like, so for basketball, it would be maybe above the rim, above the, of
Yeah.
the net. On ice, it would be center ice, the camera that kind of goes
Yeah.
or behind the nets.
But it seems like the
Um,
guys with the big cameras that are doing the actual sporting event could be moved
yeah,
out of the way. You know what I
that
mean?
what?
They could be moved out of the way. Like the people could be somewhere backstage or somewhere else.
Yeah, you know why? Because it's going to be hard to move the people out of the way, and I understand the difference is that um, with the follow spots, you're shooting that one person, right? The
Yeah.
artist or whomever. With with camera people, um, we're listening to the storyline that the announcers are talking about. So
Yeah.
if they're talking about whoever number 10 on the bench, right? You
Yeah.
need to be able to go
Got to
outside your
find them quick.
viewfinder
Yeah.
and find out what's going on. You cannot do that if you're not
That's true. Yeah, that's a
within the
very good point.
playing surface.
Well, the other thing I guess would be that, with lighting, you can get them up and out of the way. And part of the
Right.
problem has always been you got to put truss follow spot operators up in the trussing, and
Right.
it's dangerous and it's sight lines and all of those things. And so those are the ones that we're trying to replace first. And
Right.
those have moved to remote follow spots now. But I was just
Yeah,
curious
they
about
have them
that.
at the Barclays Center in New York.
Yeah.
Yep.
Interesting. So, virtual and streaming and all of this stuff. This is a growing business, or is this something that sort of flattened out a bit after COVID?
Yeah, no, it's definitely growing. Companies will always do their events, corporate meetings and events in a hybrid style, meaning in person and online. Yeah, there's only growth to be had.
Interesting. Yeah. And so, I follow this so closely because I'm always trying to figure out like our company's going to do less trade shows because they're going to do more virtual stuff where they're just in their conference rooms in their headquarters, you know, doing a virtual presentation or whatever versus having everyone at meetings or whatever. Um,
Right,
Myself, I do a lot more of my business on Zoom now than I did in the past. Now it's almost 100%. Like I travel so much less than I ever have, and to me that's a good thing. But
right.
I did fly last week, and I was delayed on every flight, and every airport was jam packed, and obviously not everyone is following my desire to be more remote, I guess. But yeah, I can't believe what's happened with travel. Like I know it's not just somebody told me they're just using less airplanes. That's why all the flights are full. The airport's full. Like it's not just
I
the flights
I
are
know.
full. The
I
airports are
traveled
full.
4 days a week for 22, 23 years,
Oh
and
boy.
I don't miss it.
No, I don't blame you at all. So, again, on technology, when you're working on virtual events and you're trying to make it more engaging for the audience, for the people watching that virtual event on a computer, or on a television, or wherever they're watching in a conference room, what are some of the tools that are available to you?
Yeah, good question. So let's say the presenter's using, PowerPoint slides, right? One thing that we'll do is we will create graphic boxes, and what I mean by that is we'll put the speaker in a one box, then we'll put the slides in a box, then we'll have like a two box. We call it a big little box, a small box for the speaker and a bigger box for the slide, and they're on the screen at the same time. So
Mm,
we'll cut back and forth between just the speaker, just the slide, especially if there's a lot of material on the slide, or a combination on the same screen, the speaker and the slide. And we'll keep cutting back and forth to make it more engaging and more interesting, not just sitting on one thing for a long period of
yeah.
time.
So, by the way, Howie, that's what I had before I screwed it all up at the front end of our call. So, uh, I had cool little windows and different boxes and different scenes that I could go to, but I kind of blew it. So I'm gonna have to rebuild those. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's cool because obviously sitting looking at a split screen like we're on right now, you can do it for a while, but after a while it gets pretty
Right.
boring. And I typically don't do just this split screen thing because I've been doing Zoom for way too long, and most I will call them competitors, but most other podcasts in my world or in my sort of purview are they're just recording Zoom calls. And so at
Right.
least I'm actually using proper podcasting software with proper lighting and proper audio and all of those types of things. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's easy to go to the sort of lowest common denominator and just record a Zoom call.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, but the quality is not good.
No, no. I mean, even from a standpoint of call it, consumer video conferencing, as opposed to the professional stuff that you do, it's gotten so much better. Like, I
Yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
I remember Google Hangouts. It wasn't that long ago. It was a couple years ago. It was
Right.
terrible, and it sent people running to Zoom. And Google Meet today, I switched back from Zoom to Google Meet for most of my stuff because I prefer it. It's easier.
I
And
think Teams is the worst.
I can't stand Teams. And what's the other one that people use? The Cisco one that's still out there floating around.
WebEx.
Yeah, maybe that's
WebEx.
it. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know, but
it's
I,
awful.
I hate when I get invited to Teams or WebEx calls and it's like I got to download software and do all this stuff.
And
It's terrible.
Teams doesn't like Mac. It doesn't like Mac. Yeah, it's brutal.
So as you're growing your virtual streaming business, what are some of the challenges you're looking at, or maybe currently impacting your business today, but going forward as you continue to scale the business and as technology continues to evolve, what are some of the challenges that are plaguing you?
Yeah, just trying to get our name out there to new clients
Mm.
and new and different projects, um, and just that's it. Just new clients, different projects, and just get our name out there.
So Veridity, your clients are who?
Our corporate corporate clients that are looking to do small to big, and we don't target one or the other, because we have all different package levels. We can do $100,000 production or a $10,000 production.
Yeah.
It all depends on what the client's needs are, and we have the equipment to do it all. um, So it just depends. So any corporate client that has some sort of either virtual, hybrid, or full in-person event.
Ah, interesting. And so, like I was saying before, obviously right after, well, during and just after COVID, most of the big companies were not going out and doing trade shows and corporate events and their meetings and stuff. Um, it seems like a lot of that has come back, but not all of it. And it seems like maybe if they were doing two big corporates a year, they're now doing one and maybe two or three virtuals to sort of fill it in. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, and to give you an example, we did at this huge. It was a trade show for veterinarians and their veterinarian pharmaceutical products.
Hmm.
Veterinarians from all over the world. So one of the pharmaceutical companies is our client. And at this conference, we shipped all of our equipment down there. We produced, because all of the key players were there, we produced a 30-minute LinkedIn live, did it live directly to LinkedIn from, the Orlando Convention Center.
Ah, interesting. And so
Yeah.
what if though I was an artist and I'm doing a concert at, whatever, and I want that concert to go out as a virtual broadcast. I want to
Yeah.
be able to sell tickets for people to
Great
go
question.
and is that something that you could get involved with?
Totally. We have
Yeah.
a CDN, or content delivery network, where we
Mm-hmm.
we stream it to our proprietary content delivery network, and we would stream it to, the artist's website, or a microsite of the artist's website
Mm-hmm.
that we can design, and we would put it behind a paywall. And the only way to get to see the broadcast would be able to, pay to
Yeah.
see it. We do something similar for, just a quick example, for the synagogue that I'm a member of. We do this super high end production for the holidays in September, where we have 4 cameras and a lot of graphics, and we just make the virtual experience something that people would want to go to, because we can't fit everyone in the synagogue. But
Yeah.
we put it behind a donation paywall. It's not a mandatory thing, but we ask people obviously to donate to be able to watch it.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So,
Yeah.
yeah, because I mean, I know that that's a thing. Like a lot of artists I see are trying to kind of blend combinations of, like, for example, Metallica. A friend of mine is the LD for Metallica,
Oh, nice.
and they are, they're out doing these massive stadium shows, but they now have a thing that they've just put into movie theaters. And I think it was only for a few day limited run or something, but um, I see a lot more artists doing that kind of a thing. Like, I would expect, if she hasn't already, Taylor Swift, because of how
Oh, they
how
they definitely shot her.
how short they are on tickets. No matter how many venues she does, everybody still wants
Right.
to see her more and more and more. And so, yeah, I would expect that there's some way of paying money to see a Taylor Swift concert from your living room or whatever. Again, like to
Oh,
me, it's
yeah.
not the same experience, but it's added value or whatever you want to call it. Like maybe if you
Right.
get the ticket, if you buy a ticket and you go watch it live, they give you a replay of it for free, where you've got a code that you can put in and go back and watch it.
Right.
So you don't have to record the whole show with your iPhone like this. Oh, my arm's getting so sore. Oh, my arm's getting so sore. Yeah. You know, but I mean, brings up another funny point. So a friend of mine, Mark Brickman, is a lighting designer for well, he did Pink Floyd for a number of years,
Okay.
and just a super talented guy. And I'm sure it's Mark who told me this, but it might have been somebody else. So if it's somebody else, I apologize if you're listening. But that more and more now, LDs are starting to look at their shows through an iPhone because they might have 15,000 people in the arena watching the show, but they've got 1 million people on YouTube watching it.
We've
And
done, yeah, that's a good point.
yeah, so they're actually saying, they're looking and going, what's my show look like on an iPhone or on a Samsung phone or whatever, but what's it look like on a screen this big? And they're tweaking it, maybe color, maybe just angles and things like that, to make sure that it looks really great on a phone. So
We've done a number of shoots, live stream shopping shoots, where we take our professional Sony FX9, and instead of shooting it this way, we shoot it this way.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, same reason.
the side, the way, so the same exact thing.
Yeah,
So it's broad because more people are watching on a mobile device, i.e., a phone, than anywhere else.
yeah. Well, I mean, especially when you're talking about something like a concert where, there's probably 1,000 people in the audience that are recording songs that night and then immediately posting them up to YouTube or Facebook or whatever it
Right,
is. So millions and millions of people who aren't at that show are watching that video, and it might as well look good, you know?
right, yeah.
So, yeah. So just once again, how do people reach you? How do people book you? How do they find you to sign up for your teaching? I think it's all super interesting, by the way. Like
Thank you.
everything I've just learned, I knew nothing about it, obviously, based on my questions. You can tell, but but yeah, how do people find you?
Yeah, Howie Zales, excuse me, HowieZales.com.
Okay,
And then all of our websites are there. And for any client or artist or anyone that does a live stream with us for the first time client, we give 10% off.
cool,
Um, and yeah, HowieZales.com. All of our websites are there, or at Howard Zales on LinkedIn.
awesome. Thank you so much, Howie. I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you for your time. I really
Very
appreciate it.
very
I'm
interesting
honored to
guest.
be here.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
All right, my friend. See you later.
Bye.